Greetings, and welcome to this brief introduction to Plato's dialogue, the Menexenus. Plato's Menexenus looks like a speech. Even Aristotle calls it the funeral oration. Yet if we're to make any sense of it, we must not forget that it is a dialogue containing a speech. Socrates begins the dialogue by calling out to his young friend Menexenus, who has just come from the council chamber, where he went to learn who would be chosen to deliver the annual funeral oration over the remains of the Athenian war dead. Menexenus seems to have political ambitions. In response, Socrates tells him that he has just such a speech, a funeral oration, which he learned from the great politician Pericles' mistress Aspasia. On the face of it, then, this dialogue appears to show Socrates teaching a youth the art of speaking, so as to get ahead in politics. It appears to show Socrates behaving like a sophist, a professional teacher of clever speaking. That's just the sort of behavior that got Socrates hauled before the Athenian jury. One could defend Socrates from this charge this way. Socrates says here that there's nothing much to giving a good speech. He says it's all about flattering your audience. There's nothing easier than to praise Athenians in Athens, he quips. He implies that even a woman who cannot engage in politics can come up with better speeches than the politicians. His real lesson, then, appears to be, don't take this political stuff too seriously. But such a defense seems worse than the charge. Could it be that Socrates so looks down on political life that he can joke about the city's most solemn occasion, a public burial, which has deep religious significance? Does Socrates look down on the city's gods? This too was an accusation made against him, for which he was ultimately executed. But against this charge, the Menexenus offers a fine defense, the speech itself. The speech falls into three main parts. First, it praises the war dead as good, based on their nature, their nurture, their education, their regime or constitution, and the beautiful action of their deeds. By far the largest part of the speech concerns their deeds. It tells of mythical battles of the Athenian ancestors. It relates historical events, starting with the Persian Wars. It describes the Peloponnesian War, which it says stemmed from the other cities' envy of Athens. Finally, it mentions the recent Corinthian War with the Greeks and Persians. It says that the Athenians fought all these wars in defense of their freedom. It makes no mention of Athens' empire. In the second part, the speech encourages the dead men's sons to be like their ancestors. It quotes the dead men themselves. They order their children to practice virtue, for, they say, virtue brings all other good things. They also order their sons to seek good fame, which will make the dead men happy and will allow their children to come to them in death as friends. Third, the speech consoles the parents of the dead. It tells them not to weep, for the dead have achieved a great good. It encourages them to be brave, for the city will care for them. The speaker then bids the survivors to depart. This speech then is no joke. It is a most serious speech for a most serious occasion. It also shows Socrates' seriousness about politics. We can best judge his seriousness if we compare Socrates' speech, as he invites us to do, with the funeral oration spoken by Athens' most famous politician, Pericles, which was recorded in Thucydides' history. There are many comparisons, which we could consider. I'll focus on just three. First, Socrates reveals what he thinks a speaker should praise as the proper goal or end of politics, the defense of freedom. In comparison, Pericles praises empire. In particular, Socrates praises the Athenians' freedom as just. Their justice is rooted in their literally being born from the land of Athens. They belong to it as much as it belongs to them. In contrast, Pericles praises empire as a means to Athens' worldwide fame, whether for good or for bad deeds. Second, Pericles' speech makes almost no mention of the family. He praises the city above all. Socrates' speech gives a large role to the family. The dead men encouraged their sons to pursue good fame so as to become their friends after death. The speech also emphasizes that the city will care for the dead men's families. Socrates' speech treats both the city and the family as natural. Third, philosophy. Pericles says that one of the Athenians' great achievements is that they philosophize without softness. Socrates' speech does not mention philosophy. Instead, he underscores that the city is the realm of opinion, shame, fame, good reputation, doxa in Greek. Unlike the Republic, the city of this speech has no public role for philosophy. But perhaps in just this way, Socrates points to a practical place for philosophy, in private. Indeed, Socrates' defense of nature, justice, and the family may prove more congenial to philosophy than Pericles' boast that philosophy should have a public role in an enlightened despotism. There's much else that we could say in comparing Socrates and Pericles' funeral orations, but maybe what's been said helps explain the oddest feature of this dialogue, that Socrates' speech mentions events that took place a dozen or more years after his death. Why would Plato present us with such an impossible dialogue? It could be to add to the defense of the, quote, real Socrates, that he was no sophist or despiser of politics. But it could also be to remind us, forcefully, that in this speech about the deeds of those who died for Athens, this Socrates, who claims to have been Athens' benefactor and who has already died, pointedly never mentions his own deeds. By his ironic presence, rather than by his serious words, he reminds us of the life of philosophy. Thank you for joining this brief introduction to Plato's dialogue, the Menexenus.